not know that we're in New York?
Oh, yeah. Recording now officially.
Oh, are we recording?
I can't hear
recording
you.
now?
Flavius,
Yeah,
you're
you're on mute.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I asked if it was okay if we started recording.
Well,
Okay. Hi,
You
Flavy.
Hey, how's it
Yeah.
going?
and no one responded because no one heard you.
Right,
here.
that is true. I thought we had the mental. Oh, I forgot. It's only me and Sam that have that mental connection that way.
Yeah.
Oh, what
We can read
mental
each other's
connection is that?
thoughts.
What
You know,
mental connection is
The mental connection. The
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Like, I know, like, yes, like, I know, like, like, I communicate with you telepathically when I want you to start
Telepathically.
recording.
Tele-acceptance.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with telekinesis.
Right. It's
Which is
Professor.
moving-
Well,
Right. It's
Moving
Professor
things
X
with your
versus
minds.
Professor X versus Jean Grey.
Right.
Yeah.
well, and I only have the telepathic connection.
Well, all men do have
KG,
Tel-
apparently. 'Cause I can
all men
predict
do
what
have
he's doing.
telekinetic powers, but we won't speak on that. Right.
Oh, God. Okay. That's funny.
It's okay. It's all right.
That's funny.
We'll wait until Ish gets here.
Is he coming?
Oh, I don't know. You got me. So what's
there you
good?
go.
So your name's Matt. Hey, what's up, Matt?
What's up? How you
All
doing?
right. Friends with Damien?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. We figured we'd try you out tonight and see how it goes. We'll give you a little trial
I'm with
run.
it.
It's also a
Yeah,
trial
see, I
for
like it.
Damien. It's also a trial for Damien to see how his tastes are. And
I'm always
friends
on trial.
/
See how
recommendations.
his taste of friends are.
Yeah. All right. I'll do my best.
So have folks been, I guess folks have probably been checking out the news. You know, sometimes like I don't find out what's going on until I hear it from other people. And I was on a call with some union folks today, and I kind of found out some of the news that's been going on. But it was well, I won't say much more than that for union reasons, but it was just interesting finding out the information, you know, from other folks and having to play catch up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of find myself in that situation a lot more recently.
Yeah.
Did the news by chance have to do with a union that does a similar job as me?
The union was the way that I got the information. It didn't have to do with the news itself. The news was about Kenosha and what's going on in Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, I ended up watching a couple of different videos. The first video I saw was very short, but I ended up finding a compilation video that went through several angles and detailed some of the event. It was actually a pretty messy event in general, deep tragedy, no matter how you want to cut the cake, really. Really strange interpretation of law, but ultimately, you know, I saw just recently that he's set up to be on trial for murder. So that's definitely set into motion. And, you know, it really puts to question, though, the gun ownership laws of a 17-year-old, especially with an assault rifle. That, you know, across the board, no matter what opposing view I spoke to, was something that kind of, you know, rang true, no matter how you want to look at it. Is you have a 17-year-old with an assault rifle. So,
Now, were the people that got killed, were they protesters or who were they?
interesting distinction, right? Protesters and rioters can be hard to distinguish sometimes, much like the many different bacterias in our body, where some are good for us and helpful, and some are not so helpful and don't represent our body.
And some are found in Activia.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so in other words, he killed people that were out in the streets, like as a result of everything that's been happening.
Right, and I'll share the video to be clear with what I saw, so you know what I'm talking about if we add it to the comment section for anything with this video. But what ends up happening earlier on is there is a conflict of interest between business owners who are protecting their storefront and potentially rowdy rioters, but peaceful protesters separate themselves from the rowdy rioters, if you will.
Well, that's what happened in New York too.
Yeah, they
like
literally-
during the George Floyd protest.
Yeah, peaceful protesters cross to the other side of the street in a
Okay.
fairly organized fashion, while some unorganized rioters begin stirring up or provoking conflict with the very well-armed store owners or people representing the store owners. And across from those people are very well-armed police officers with the vehicles known as the Bearcats, or the otherwise well-armored vehicles that are designed
And so,
to
and so the 17-year-old, was he down with one of these factions?
You know, that's what
I
I
mean-
was unable to identify.
Or no, sorry, the shooter. Yeah, the 17-year-old, the
Well,
shooter.
the shooter was
Shooter is-
pro-cop, like he was like a cop in training or something.
Well, they say aspiring to be a cop, so it is very questionable, some of his involvements, that need to be looked further into. The only information I could truly confirm was he was there earlier that day. You know, this wasn't his hometown. He was there earlier that day, and he was helping remove and or clean graffiti off of a local courthouse wall. And there's some pictures of him doing it, so it's widely confirmed. And later on that day, he is helping represent the defense of residents. But there are some complications involved with his claims of home defense and helping local residents. One of the issues is he had no non-lethal means of deterrence, which is to say he only came there with lethal means.
Right.
So this now...
Yeah, he came there AK-47.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you would have had some non-lethal measure to claim home defense.
Where did he live?
I'm not sure the exact residence, but it was said to be 20 odd miles away from the area. So
Okay.
far enough away where he had to travel. It doesn't say how he got there, if he drove himself.
Mhm.
It was suggested that he was there with a friend. You know, there's some speculation still in the air. Mostly what I confirmed was from the videos of the event itself and that one picture prior to the event. You know, something to note is he doesn't seem to have any political intention or mentions anything about a faction or a feeling. But it is also mentioned in some of the information 2 weeks prior, he was at a Trump
rally. Yeah.
as
I
a
heard about that.
VIP. So it does seem that he has some political allegiance in that department.
The
Mm.
say the least.
VIP.
And was he arrested?
In fact, he was peaceably arrested after the fact. In the video, you can see he attempts to turn himself in right away to one of the Bearcat vehicles, which drives past him in the direction of the injured people. And then he tries to hand himself into the second Bearcat, which then also drives past him. And then he makes it up to a third vehicle, which was a basic squad car. And that's where the video cuts off. But they say later that night he was arrested, and they do mention peacefully. So
What I heard was one of the people at the demonstration tried to turn him in, and they were asking the cops why they weren't arresting him, and the cops were saying something like, "We didn't see the video," or something like that, and they were like, "He just shot someone." And that's the only.
What
That's the only
video
thing
do
I
you
heard.
need to
Yeah,
see?
because they really need to. Yeah, because they need to see so much evidence before they shoot a black guy. I'm like,
Right.
F out of here.
yeah, there definitely seemed to be a slanted bias there. I mean, the kid was armed. One of the things to consider in this situation is police were concerned with the very heavily armed storefront protectors and the very provocative rioters. So police
Mhm.
were more concerned with what they thought was going to be the front lines of a conflict
Right.
when the real conflict happened, maybe let's say about 100 yards back behind that front line. So
Mhm.
it's a curious event that seemed to have some premeditated measures to it. In fact, some of the earlier occurrences of the video where he identifies not having a non-lethal means of defense, he had reported being sprayed with pepper spray or mace, and an EMT or a medical unit did come to him. And I wonder in this moment why the EMT didn't identify, okay, here's a 17-year-old with an assault rifle. Maybe I should get some further assistance back behind this front line to address a potential hazard.
But you're saying he shot people
This took
after?
him badly.
He shot
It
people
might be
after
because-
pepper spray and after a failed Molotov cocktail device or whatever was thrown at him. So
Okay.
he took flack from two different sources prior to the escalation, but I should mention that was one of his first victims that he shot, was someone who had been a part of a group that threw some flaming device that did not explode and did not cause any damage, but put him in a panic where he took cover behind a vehicle and was rushed by 3 other people, one of which he shot. And when that person went down, that's when he makes his first break towards the street again. It is.
And he's got his weapon flashing the whole time?
Yes, he's had his weapon brandished the entire time. It's what he thought would act as a deterrent, I suppose.
It was basically strapped to his chest, if I
Okay.
recall.
Yes, and strapped to his body, absolutely. And he did seem to have some equipment, which suggests maybe reloads or rounds or intent more. That's part of his legal defense issue here, is trying to claim himself as a home defender doesn't really line up with his equipment check. He had an assault rifle and he was well armed for urban combat. It was not
Plus, home defenders are usually defending their own homes.
correct. Another
yeah,
point.
not
that
like
home's
20
20 miles
away
out
from
from
their
out.
homes.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yes, another very serious point to consider on how this case gets handled. And objectively speaking, the facts are there. There's
And did there seem to be any division between the homeowners and the people? Were there any racial lines at all between homeowners and the demonstrators? And was there any situation where it looked like the people who were escalating might have been people from outside of the area, like they've been accused of in other protests?
you mean by the rioters
seems like
That
themselves or the
17-year-old
homeowners
was
themselves?
exactly that person.
Wait, what's that?
It seems like the 17-year-old in question was
Was
exactly that person.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I guess I was asking 2 questions, Damien.
Yeah, it
If there
was
seemed to be any racial division between the homeowners and the protesters, i.e., the 2 white folks who, ended up shooting some black folks who were invited to the RNC to speak. And then my second question was, did it seem like the rioting came from outside agitators?
Yeah, I mean, from what the videos demonstrated, it seems like the agitators themselves were not part of the peaceful protest, and in fact were a separate group, which at one point identified themselves as Antifa, according to one of the peaceful protesters, who did not subscribe to being a part of Antifa so much as they were there to represent the BLM or Black Lives Matter issue. The homeowners I did not see them in the video, and they were not referenced in the Vice article I read through. But we could surmise that there very well could have been a racial barrier or difference or distinction between the homeowners and some of the protesters. But here's the thing, is that it's noted some of these Antifa rioters or provokers or agitators were white. A lot of them were
Most Antifa
Caucasian.
most Antifa are.
Yeah, so
yeah,
as far
that's
as
nothing new.
the people that were shot and killed, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of them for sure I identified are Caucasian as well.
Mhm.
One of which did draw or brandish a pistol which is also strange. I mean, if you look at the escalation factors, I mentioned before the pepper spray and the Molotov failed cocktail that was thrown. There's also the moment where he is jump kicked in the head on the ground, hit with a skateboard on the ground, and he's also held under duress by the pistol drawn. Now, all of this happens very fast, and none of this is right. Every step and measure of this, in my opinion, is wrong. There was no right way to have handled this. The right way would have been preventing it. And
we also don't know that this is quote unquote Antifa either, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, there's nothing that truly identifies or indicates that except for the person who's originally videotaping it and separates the peaceful protesters from the not peaceful protesters. So now, right, Antifa kind of becomes this strange, and I don't want to call it an umbrella, but I know actually Matt was talking about it, how Antifa being identified as a terrorist organization becomes problematic because anybody could be considered anti-fascist.
It's the same thing they do with BLM. They blame anytime there's black, protesters or someone demonstrating and something happens, they just use an umbrella term.
Or they just blame the victim.
Yeah.
Of course. Like that's actually something that goes back to the like Nazi playbook, is like the Jews are simultaneously a bunch of wishy-washy, effeminate people, and they're not, they're beneath our notice, but at the very same time, they're running the shit. There's this weird dichotomy that goes into that, which is
whatever fits.
Simultaneously, they're not a threat, but they are also what's wrong with the world. So
Sure.
it's like
They're
running
not a threat,
both
but
of
they're
those
also a
lines at the
threat.
same time, like it's a classic fascist playbook move.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing done to immigrants. Like, they're they're lazy, but they're taking all of our jobs. That's like, which one is it?
It's like
I'm saying I work landscaping. Like nobody
it's like
took
these
my
are
job.
dueling things, so it's like these are dueling ideas. So pick one.
Yeah, if only. Well, they pick whichever one is convenient in the moment.
Sure.
Like that's the
Well,
axe
that
of
sounds
cowards.
about right.
Now, I've seen some protests in the city before, and in some other areas, going a while back. Not even entirely sure what the demonstrations were representing, but in the city, especially with the union when demonstrations happen, there's an identified area or zone for demonstrators. This way, there is a means to separate demonstrators from agitators.
Oh, you mean
And-
the free speech zone?
Correct. They said as I was very resistant and reluctant to it. I felt that it defeated the purpose of the demonstration, which may have well been to create a disruption in the usual flow of things, but they do it off to the side of the sidewalk so that the demonstrators are not obstructing, consumers or tourists or whatever other, people are around. But when I've seen some other marches and some other demonstrations, police tend to line the streets. They tend to already be there, some even on horses, well armed, and it acts in some ways as a deterrent from some agitators. And in another way, demonstrators have
What
said
if they
that,
are the agitators, though? The police.
right, well, I mean,
What if that were the case?
Yeah.
Imagine.
police have in some ways played a
'Cause,
role
that never
agitating
happens.
protesters. Yes. In fact, police on horses, sometimes making their way through a crowd, the horse ends up nudging up against protesters or pushing people into each other. In fact, perhaps one of the most famous moments with Local 3 in the organized labor protest is a horse that bumps into a drunk protester who turns around and punches the horse in the face. Of course, the horse is an officer, and so punching the horse in
So
the
assault
face
on a
was
police officer for punching the horse.
which,
Oh, I'm sure he's still in jail.
well, it's actually
I feel like I've heard this story before.
it's the punch heard around the world. People, or at least around the unions, everybody has heard in some degree or another about this because it changed the face of Local 3's ability to organized demonstrations. In fact, we had to sign off on sanctions and junctions that prevented us from actually reaching out in some creative ways that we used to. Even some protests where Local 3 would give free food to homeless people and then provide free drinks on the other side of a building and actually get people to walk through the building with their sandwiches to get the drinks as a means to protest the building, which was refusing to organize labor. That was one of my favorite protests. But we're not allowed to do that anymore after the guy who punched the horse, so...
And of course, I'm sure all
Yeah,
the
but horse puncher,
horses,
you ruined it for everyone.
I'm sure all the police horses is probably, you know, joined forces and kicked the shit out of the guy who punched the horse.
Right, well, the horse being the majestic creature
Oh, no doubt.
it is.
He's already dead.
Yeah, but the point being a little bit that the horse agitated the protester and turned the protester into the agitator because the mounted officer tried to make his way through a crowd. He simply could have just manned his post or went around the crowd. There was no reason for him to do that. So police have in some ways protected protesters, but in other ways agitated them. I suppose why I bring this up in the situation is I wonder if the police thought to protect the protesters from the agitators and were already in the street, could that have prevented these deaths? Or would it have agitated or escalated a worse situation?
Yeah. Well, the way they've been trained, we'll never know. It doesn't seem like they've been trained for proper de-escalation.
Okay. They do have non-lethal means to handle things, something to consider, which the, I want to say poorly trained 17-year-old did not. But I have to admit, after watching the video, though I don't really see him as the most athletic individual based on the way he was running, he did seem pretty well trained handling that assault rifle. I'll tell you, he was able to perform a little tuck and roll move after falling, and the way he got up and the way he fired those rounds were very precise. He was shooting that gun well before he was 17. If I had to guess, he may have been shooting that gun for 3 or 4 years prior to owning it, or a gun like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had read that it was actually an illegal gun, like that he wasn't supposed to have.
Well, the AR-15 as an assault rifle has been put to question. I don't know if it's been completely banned in Wisconsin. I know other states.
Well, no, but I mean, he possessed it illegally.
Right. Well, being
Unregistered?
17 already off the bat, is that the legal age for gun ownership? I don't think that works that way for assault rifles. It's also not mentioned, what kind of round clips did he have? What degree ammunition did he have? There's some things about the gun too that could be put to question that I didn't see any information on. But from the multiple angles,
It was a gun.
Yeah, it was
It was with live rounds in it.
Yeah, lethal rounds. I mean, important
Yeah.
to note, lethal ammunition. It was a lethal weapon.
Well, I mean, cops are certainly using lethal weapons left and right. And even when they're using non-lethals, they're like blinding people with rubber bullets,
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
So again, they're
Or
not
giving
like,
people like cardiac arrest with the tear gas and every other thing,
Mhm.
Right.
or
Yeah,
or
that's
or
actually
physically
what else?
beating them to death.
Yeah.
Or taking them off into an unmarked van to be dealt with later.
right.
And
Like
then
in
claiming
Portland.
that they're the warrant squad.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch what
And
you
then
said.
claiming to be the warrant squad, but they've driven up in like a rented minivan.
Oh no, there's some like sub-military organization, like some offshoot of ICE or some shit that just has free reign.
Well, quite frankly, the only place that I think ice belongs is in my freezer, so
Good one. Yeah, what we don't want to see. If I were to, lay down some speculation in the future, is we don't want to see privatized security forces on the rise. And I think this is a good example as to why privatized security factions could become a problem and could lead to some other issues as far as identifying, the difference between, public servants or private sector security. This 17-year-old kid was acting as a privatized security force for a place that was not his home, so technically not his jurisdiction if we had to put
Well,
legal
for all
letter.
intents and
No, it
purposes,
sounds like
he was
vigilante.
volunteering, right? It's not like he was a part of a.
Keep in mind, he was
No,
originally
he was being a
volunteering
vigilante is what he
to
was doing.
Orale.
He was originally volunteering to clean the graffiti off of a courthouse. I mean, that was his original purpose being.
Well, what was the graffiti? Like, why was he volunteering? Like,
Right.
I wonder.
Which could link us to some of the other language that led him to the events that preceded as well. Who did he contact? How did he know? What groups was he a part of? What is his social media record like?
What is the meaning of all this?
Yeah.
What is the meaning of life?
Well, yeah, that's life and death is certainly a part of, the discussion as to what happened and the value that was lost by the community in these events. Even the 2 days prior to the event, where rioters were said to have destroyed buildings and caused fires and looted, which is what escalated store owners and others to, rush to the defense of this town and have fully armed people all over that gas station. Again, I'll send the video just so you guys know, what I'm saying. But it's not that it matters too much, to be honest. The fact of the matter is that there are so many layers to how wrong this event is that unpacking it is, it's inevitable. We just don't want to see anything overlooked. It's a good chance for a public service to kind of step up and show like how valuable it is to have a public investigation, peel all of these layers apart, and apply all of the proper charges to exact justice, because there is such good footage. There are so many good angles. There's so much information available for them to work with here that this would be a case that's easy for them to dissect and get into.
But as of now, they're not sure if he acted alone or what his deal was.
Right. Everything.
They don't know what's going on, basically, any more than we do.
Right. We simply have to suggest that there was a guardian involved somewhere along the way. There was some assistance. The 17-year-old acting alone would require too much independent responsibility. The transparent accountability here suggests for sure that some parent or guardian was involved and that he has some association to some group or some factor at play here.
Well, I feel like that the parent or guardian, the parents must have I feel like the kid's not going to be at a Trump rally alone without his parents. Like the kid can't even vote.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks.
Never underestimate kids.
Yeah,
Well,
They're doing dumb shit.
oh, believe me, I know kids do dumb shit. But what I mean
What,
is,
did you forget?
he had to have gone. I mean, he had to have gotten the idea to be a Trump supporter from somewhere.
I agree with that.
Well,
Like, online radicalization is a fucking thing. Like,
Oh no, kids!
it's weirdly quiet, but like, if you spend enough time on the internet, like, you're gonna find yourself getting wrapped up in all kinds of bullshit without even fucking realizing it.
So you think it was more the internet and not so much the parents? What do you
Well,
think?
yeah, because the parents don't know what the fuck. Like, I mean, I guess maybe I'm speaking only from my case, but like, my parents never knew what the fuck I was doing online. And like,
I don't think anyone's did.
yeah, that was the point. Like, we kept it that way, didn't we?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell if You know, I mean, if he's, you know, a military kind of trained person, maybe this is family business that he's into, and he's 17, maybe not. Like, you know,
Right.
I guess
Well,
we have no way of really knowing until information comes out. So it's all speculation.
That's true.
and again, just to speak to some of the logistics in the video breakdown, I mean, here's a 17-year-old with a high-powered assault rifle who fended off, dealt with, I don't know if I want to say fended off, but dealt with a crowd of at least 20, 30 people throughout the video, 10 people actively attacking him in different ways, and 3 of the people that got so very close to him as to have gotten shot, these are adults. These are young adults that, one jumps up and kicks him in the head. I mean, that guy was easily 20, 30 years old. And the other guy who hits him with a skateboard, again, late 20s, early 30s. And then the final guy who comes up with a phone and draws a pistol. I mean, these are fully grown adults. If they
So the question is, did they feel, did they feel threatened by the 17-year-old with an AR?
Yeah,
15?
they were definitely threatened. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No doubt in my mind they were scared, but like they continued to provoke and agitate instead of forming a well-calculated strategy. Instead of, like the first guy who kicked him in the head and the second guy who hit him with the skateboard. I mean, if these two people coordinated their attack instead of like running at him like, uncoordinated, I don't even know how to describe their approach. They, clearly, how often do you deal with an armed assailant like that?
Yeah, I mean, these are citizens. These are trained people, right?
Yeah, what I'm getting at a little bit is the 17-year-old had more training than this entire riot.
Right.
So when we talk about like the internet or the parents, someone is involved here who trained this kid. This kid had a mentor.
Like a militia.
This kid had some training. He knew what he was doing more than these other people did, and his skill and experience, though it was misguided and horribly used, and again, just to express the tragedy of lives lost really for almost, I don't want to say for no reason. There's always a reason and a purpose behind something somewhere somehow, but like we can't overlook the aspect of
reason.
Well, just like my constant family values, communal equity point here is there were family values at play that allowed him to train this way, allowed him to develop this outlook, this mindset, this modality. There's some family value, even if it's not his biological family, there's some sense of family, some sense of mentorship that allowed him to develop those skills and hone them. And the lack of communal equity, the lack of community response to help guide him in a way where he could put his skills to some more productive or progressive use than to be out on the street murdering people by accident. Not by accident, he intentionally murdered them, but I don't think he really wanted to murder people. When you look at it, I really don't think he got in way over his head. He got involved with things that really did not involve him. He gave his power up to something way out of his control. And he's guilty as charged. He's a murderer. He needs to be addressed as such. The example needs to be set. And let me also point out, well, if he's a murderer and he's a soldier in this respect, he's a child soldier. And there's if I'm not mistaken, a Geneva Convention against that. So whatever person trained him to be the soldier that he is, should also be accountable in this case, I believe. If I had to throw, you don't know
that they're going to use that definition. You don't know that definition is going to suffice for being a soldier.
Right.
Yeah.
He's he could just be considered a wacko with a weapon, or he could be considered a part of a militia. Who knows? But I think soldier would imply something more.
More
I think that's a bit of
organized.
a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like a militia, oh please.
Yeah.
But like a soldier is different. Yeah.
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 Because now, if I'm not mistaken, there are in in Israel, when you turn 18, I believe, you train to be a part of the military as a part of a communal thing. Like that's a part of their community there. But they set an age of maturity for that training. And I do support the right to form a militia. And I think that people should be educated and trained on whatever technology is available for defensive purposes. And I just feel that this is a case where we see corruption of the youth at its finest, and where we can really stand to investigate and examine those factions of corruption. Like, you know, what led this child to, you know, this point. Like I'm saying, he didn't just pick that gun up that day and start shooting it. He was familiar with that weapon. In fact, I almost feel like he was more familiar with that weapon than he was familiar with his own hormonal developments. You know, this kid is still developing as a person. So that to me kind of stands out as an interesting factor to this case, is again the transparent accountability of the upbringing and the people involved. You know, again, still holding him individually responsible for his actions, but understanding like there's a bigger picture here. And
Well, yeah, he had to have gotten those ideas from somewhere.
right, and the internet is definitely a good thing for sure to point out, but I just feel, you know, the internet didn't give him the hands-on experience that he had prior to the event.
Yeah, they're going to be searching for his parents for sure, and maybe
Well, the
for
internet
some
doesn't
group.
give anyone hands-on experience at anything. Just look at me trying to teach on the internet for months.
Yeah,
Well, it's
well,
like
it's
anything, it
called
takes
hands-
practice.
It's called hands-on for a reason, right?
Yeah, you have to practice. You got to put your hands on it. Like I've no doubt that this dude had experience with weapons. Like he could load his own gun, and he had the strap to, you know, put it on his chest and all that shit. Like
He
he
had to have
didn't
gotten
not
it
know what he
from
was doing. Like
someone
if you
taught
don't,
him.
if he really didn't know what he was doing, he would never have showed up there with a gun in the first place. Like
Well, that is, you know, I mean, people have done things like
actually, yeah, that's a good point.
that. But he, no, he
Thanks for
seems
calling me
to
back
have,
on that.
he seems to have, you know, some knowledge. He seems to have some knowledge of.
More than the lay person, I would say.
Yeah.
That's really all I'm trying to
I don't think it was the first time that he picked up a gun. Let's put it that way.
Precisely.
Well, I wonder how long this is going to go on for. It's, you know, it's one more reason to have people think about just the whole policing aspect in general and what it leads to. Just the like root cause of the whole situation.
It's you know, again, it's such a fascinating point, is that how this can be spun too is like, and first to point out, the trial will be expedited, like it's being rushed.
Who you're talking about of this kid?
Yeah, with this kid, it was expedited to the 28th, I believe, was going to be the start of it. They pushed this as a high priority case.
What about the cops that were involved in the shootings?
They got put
You're
on
talking about in the cases with
administrative
like Jacob Blake and the other cases, because
Yeah.
those are not being expedited. That I did
Yeah.
not hear about. In this case, this kid's case is being expedited, absolutely, and we know many other cases too involving police officers who are the instrument, you know, of assault. When the officer is the one committing the crime, those cases are put way on the back burner. They're a low priority case. The officers are oftentimes, if I'm not mistaken, discharged or put on a leave of absence, or in extreme cases, I've seen some house arrest situations develop. You know, it's an interesting thing to point out too. Like, here's a 17-year-old who, in the most craziest situation, way over his head, definitely had some corrupted youth aspects. His trial's getting expedited as quick as possible. But then you have officers out of an academy who were trained to handle situations to the fullest extent of their law and training, and they do something wrong. They overextend their qualified immunity, or whatever you want to call their snap judgments or misjudgments in that case, and their trials and their investigations are delayed and in many cases dismissed, we could say. So that kind of speaks a lot about the slant or bias in the law, and part of what we want to refund on. And as far as revamping the police and the academy and the training, the justice system itself has so many flaws and so many little loopholes that are designed to allow some of these situations to go on the way they do. And I think, that's something I really do like about the attention that we're seeing with the defunding or wanting a refund from a lack of service, is that the justice system itself is
not working.
It's failing to serve the people, and it's serving something other than the people. It's serving itself. It's a self-serving system that we've seen on many accounts, and definitely a driving point with the Black Lives Matter movement is that the self-serving nature of the justice system has contributed to the slant and the bias that we're seeing. Even if it's a problem in the field and something goes wrong, the bigger problem always ends up being in the courthouse, and how things that go wrong are oftentimes not handled appropriately or professionally.
Hey, what's up, Ish?
Howdy.
And then there was silence.
Hey, Ish, are you there?
Probably no. But I'm actually, one of my own personal cases, I'm getting a chance to expose some of the flaws in the justice system, and I've got a lot of good paperwork and even some recordings that go with it. But I'm constantly told by even the people representing me that I'm up against a much bigger battle than I could imagine. And that...
Yo, what up, everybody?
Hey, what's good?
What's going on?
All right.
Hey.
Hey, we got a new person in the house. Ish, I don't know if you can see based on who's speaking or what have you, but we have Matt Fitzgerald.
I can only see the speaker, but I'm not gonna have my headphones on for a couple of minutes because I actually just put them on. I'm gonna get in my car and ride to the store, but I'm gonna leave the Zoom on. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. Hi, yo, what up, everybody? I'm Ish. For those who don't know me,
I'm Fitzy. And
Say
you probably
again?
don't know me.
What's your name again? What'd you say your name was?
Fitzy.
Fitzy. Hey, what's up, Fitzy? What up, Damien? What up, E?
What's up, Ish?
Howdy.
You go
I'll
by
be playing
Fitz?
the role of the only woman in the room tonight.
You go by
Oh.
Fitz?
Me?
She's a woman.
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
Fitzer, is it Fitzer or Fitz? What?
Fitzy.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Fitzy. Cool.
Like
Do you
Bitsy,
live
but
Do you
with
live
that.
on Long Island as well?
I do.
Okay. What part?
The North Shore.
Oh, okay. Are
Northport.
you new? Are you new to Long Island?
No. I was raised. I'm born and raised in Riverhead, but I moved
Okay.
out here to Northport recently.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Long Island all my life.
Okay. Yeah, I've been out there a bunch of times. I used to work out there.
It's a fair enough town.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it.
Yeah. It's
I like
pretty,
it, but it's fair enough. No matter what you
yeah,
say.
it's got enough towns that if you don't like one town, you can check out another.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
you could get from the poorest to the richest out here on fucking Long Island. You go out to the Hamptons, Lord, like
Yeah.
I mean, I
My
found
dad
one
used to work for UPS. He'd deliver for Elton John and shit.
I found like working
Funny
in
shit.
Queens, everyone lives in Long Island that I work with anyway. So
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah,
technically
Queens
it's all
is
the
like
same,
practically
it's all
part
the
of
same
Long
island.
Island.
it's all
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yep. All the same island.
Oh yeah.
But what's Long Island has like what's it got like 5 million people or something like that, or is that right? Or is it more?
I can't say I've ever checked the numbers. I wouldn't be able
Okay.
to tell you.
I'll find
I
out.
could look it up if you want.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I know between New York City
Siri,
and
what's the
Long
population
Island,
of Long
there's
Island?
probably like 20 million people. So maybe Long Island's got like 10 million, or I can't remember.
Population of Long
Oh,
Island was 7,804,968.
700,000.
7 million.
7 million?
7,804,968.
Yeah.
Thank you, Siri.
And not everybody answers those census polls, by the way, so it could be more.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the case all around. So all
That's
all
true.
all populations could be more. It doesn't make Long Island more
Yeah.
than the more.
Oh yeah, who
Everybody
knows who's hiding out in the fucking Finger Lakes and shit.
Yeah.
Hey, watch yourself. There's upstate flavor in this podcast.
Well, technically,
Oh
that's
no. I've made a
technically
faux
that's
pas.
Central New York, right? Is that actually Central New York, or is that actually
The
upstate?
Finger Lakes is technically central New York, I believe.
Yeah. See, no one.
Well, I'm
actually,
from Long Island. It's all upstate from here.
Well, for me, everything below Albany is downstate.
So we don't know.
You know,
anyone
it's
who actually lives
funny.
in the real upstate.
I went to college with a dude who was from Niagara. That's all I got.
Niagara. Is that north of everything?
Yeah,
Oh
Niagara.
yeah, that's
oh,
the
oh,
falls.
it's in the falls.
Niagara Falls.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it referenced as just Niagara.
You know, Buffalo.
Where do you live, actually?
I live in Sunset Park. I live in Brooklyn, but I grew up in Syracuse and lived in Buffalo for 9 years.
Oh, I went to school up by Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
Never heard of Niagara? No shit.
Well,
Smaller
yeah.
world, huh?
Well, Niagara Falls, not Niagara, unless
We
Niagara's
don't
like,
we
Well,
don't
that's
call,
the town.
we don't call it Niagara up here.
Yeah.
No?
Okay. No.
The falls.
Unless Niagara also happens to be a
Niagara's
county.
the name of the county, but we don't call it Niagara.
Yeah, unless you live in a small town next to Niagara Falls, and you're just telling people you live in Niagara County.
Well, what do you call Niagara Falls? Do you just say the falls?
No, we say Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls or the
But he-
Falls.
He just said Niagara,
No.
so like my brain did not make the connection until he said Niagara Falls.
Niagara
I knew what he
Falls-
meant. I knew what he meant when he said Niagara, because Niagara, New York, it's the county, but up here we just don't call it Niagara.
Niagara Falls has the hydroelectric power to it. Does that power go out and is distributed to all of Niagara County, or is that just by the falls itself? I forget.
I don't
I
even
think
know that
it's-
the county. I don't even know that the county uses the hydroelectric plant to power itself. To
Really?
power the county. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think the
I don't know. It
hydroelectric
might
stuff
be though,
goes
because we have
east.
Niagara Mohawk. So just by the virtue of the name, they may.
Okay.
Like that's who powers everything around here is Niagara Mohawk.
Oh, don't say Niagara Mohawk. You're
Right,
gonna
but
give me
he's in a
nightmares.
different. But Ish in a totally different county.
Yeah, I'm in Erie County.
Yeah. But it might be big enough that it powers both. I don't know.
I think it powers even further than that. Like I think.
Yeah, I know it goes out of Erie County, Mike.
Uh-huh.
Like
I
it's the
think
big.
even my mom gets power from the falls.
Yeah, NIMO's like huge around here. It could be the falls. I know the falls is responsible for a lot. Like they send water.
Actually,
all
yeah.
over
Now
the
that you mention it, I think when I grew up in Syracuse, I think that was also our source.
Well, it was definitely Niagara Mohawk was definitely our power company in Utica because I distinctively remember overhearing many angry
Niagara.
phone calls to them because our
Niagara
power
Mohawk.
was out.
Niagara Mohawk is a far-reaching monster.
It's got all the tendrils.
Yes. And I'm assuming, without any known fact, that based on the name, it certainly probably gets power from the falls.
Right.
That seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. I know we send a lot. They send a lot of water. I say we because
The water.
it's hard for me to separate Niagara Falls from Buffalo because we're just so close.
I mean, it's a 40-minute drive from what I understand. Like, it's really not that far away.
Buffalo? Niagara Falls isn't a 40-minute drive from Buffalo.
Oh no,
Yeah,
you're
it's
right.
gotta be
That's
less than
that's a
that.
different thing.
You can
Especially
get
where I'm
Oh
at.
no, I actually got it fucked up. It's
well,
been a
yeah, it
while.
depends on where you.
Since I've been up
Depends on
in
what
there.
part you're.
It depends on
going
what part of
to.
Buffalo. Like
Yeah,
I'm
what
on
part of
and where you're
Buffalo
going.
of the ball-
Like
yeah.
And the traffic.
It'll take me 15 minutes to get to casino. Like the Peace Bridge is right up the street.
But Ish
I'm
technically
literally-
lives.
I'm literally standing 5 minutes from Lake Erie though. Like Niagara River runs right down the road.
But Ish lives in a suburb of Buffalo, so he's closer.
No, but I live on the border. I live on the border of Riverside. Like I can walk to Riverside in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm literally like I do live in a suburb, but the suburb that I live in, it's Kenmore, Mike. So it might as well be Buffalo.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it literally where I live, that Kenmore might as well be Buffalo. It's only 5 miles square, and most people don't
Right, I see.
differentiate between.
Okay.
Most people don't differentiate between Kenmore and Buffalo. Meaning, like you might remember, Mike, the whole Delaware area where like the Target Plaza and
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you know that's Kenmore.
Is that where
But-
the cheap movie theater was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That whole area, like you cross the street and you're in Kenmore, and no one really differentiates.
Oh yeah,
Until
the
you have-
bowling, the bowling lanes maybe.
Yep, Kenmore Lanes,
Yeah,
Right.
Kenmore lanes. Yep.
and no one differentiates that between. And right across the street, you have Schaefer Projects, which is Buffalo.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Literally across the street. So like the line between Buffalo and Kenmore goes down the middle of the street.
Right.
Like if you're at say University Plaza, you know where South Campus Station is.
Mhm.
On one side of the street you're in Buffalo. On the other side of the street you're in Kenmore. And
Okay.
nobody really differentiates because Kenmore is just so small.
Unless
It's either how
unless you're canvassing and you get the police called on you, then you'll
right.
know.
I was gonna say unless you have to deal with the police, then there's a differentiation. So where I'm at, like so pretty much you can assume, even though it's not the truth, people perceive Kenmore as Buffalo. Like they don't think they're outside of Buffalo when they're in Kenmore, even though
Sure.
they are, because it's
Yeah.
just so close. And
Yeah.
where I'm at, like I'm even in Kenmore, I'm 10 minutes from Lake Erie. So if I walk up, say Military, right, I'm walking alongside Niagara River, straight to Niagara Falls.
Hey,
Not that-
Wu-Tang gave a shout out to Buffalo recently, specifically
Yeah,
the
Wu-Tang
RZA.
sucked.
The RZA gave a shout out to Buffalo. They were saying
Maybe
how-
Buffalo's using his ice cream truck music.
Did they do it because Jay died?
No, this was before that. This was RZA was being interviewed, and there was actually could it have been because of Shay? I can't remember, but RZA ends up talking about people sleeping on Buffalo, and RZA said he never slept on Buffalo because him and ODB used to party up there a lot.
I don't know why anybody would sleep on Buffalo
Well, you know, if you don't.
or any town for that matter.
Well, you know, people know what they know and don't know what they don't know, so therefore sleeping.
I think the only town up here that you can sleep on is Amherst.
Well, I'm sure there's
Safest city in America. Safest city in America, right?
Is that also the whitest suburb?
It is. It's the safest city in America, though. At least it has been for like ever. That was his claim to fame. Let me get two packs of Black and Miles. That was his claim to fame for years. That it was literally the safest city in America because just the crime rate was so low.
As opposed to East Palo Alto, California, which apparently had the worst per capita murder rate, like, for like a wicked small city.
I mean, the most you would get back in the day in Amherst, no, thank you. The most you would get back in the damn Amherst was joyriders.
Mm-hmm. Dangerous.
You know, some kid stole his mom or dad's car and was caught
Oh,
joyriding.
God.
I mean, I'm sure there's just a lot of, obviously, in any city, there's a lot of drugs that just, you know. And when you start getting the title safest city in America, I'm sure you sweep a lot of things under the rug so that, you know.
Mhm.
Some white collar crime going on.
Yeah.
Well, also I'm sorry, but there's drugs in white bread suburb America. Like,
Yep, all
say
over.
there's not is like kidding yourself. Like, honestly,
mad heroin.
honestly,
Dumb coke.
I knew more people with drug problems from growing up upstate than I know in the city.
For sure.
Like,
I mean, a lot of China.
but like there has literally been like, I wish I didn't have to say this, but there's literally been like, in like the 2 high school classes before mine, down to like the couple after mine. So like basically anyone who graduated between like 2000.
Hey, Emily, I don't want to cut
2004.
you off. I just want to also shout out my man Raul.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Raul,
what's up,
I'm
man?
being rude.
No, you're not. I just happened to see him.
Oh,
Welcome, Raul.
Thank you, Matthew.
And for some reason, I have a split screen and I can see 2 people now for the first time ever. I don't know what I did. But I see
You broke
Raul
it.
and Flav.
but no,
Well,
like
I'm sorry for that, for my part.
I think like no, but what I was saying is like from like the classes of like 2000 to 2004 in my high school, so like around my vintage, there's been
Wait, is that the word you're going with, vintage?
yeah,
It's 21st century.
around my age group. So there's been like 2 or 3 people who graduated in those classes who have passed away since in the past 20 years, like pretty much before they turned 40, either from drugs or from car accidents or from like that, like mainly drug overdoses and car accidents in the snow. And I'm like, oh my God, I know more people who have died of heroin overdoses in small town America than like anywhere else in my life.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like, I know more people who have done heroin from small town America than I know in New York.
Well, Plano, Texas is like the corporate center of Texas. Very, very white bread, very upper class, and it's got the highest teen suicide rate in the country because of it.
A lot of money in Plano.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
A lot of money in Plano.
yeah. Too much, maybe. Too much for one city to handle.
Enough money to make you neglect your kids.
Bingo.
I don't know. I tend to think that on a variation of different strokes for different folks, like different classes, different problems.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely
Well,
true.
that's
Like Jeff Bezos has his own problems, you know, being the wealthiest man in America. It's not always a cakewalk.
Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
one of his problems was having a guillotine constructed in his front yard during the pandemic, right? That was one of
Sure. You know, and he
I didn't know
may
that, but
be
that makes sense.
he may be actually how do you call it? Identifying with a lot of the things going on right now, but just because he's the wealthiest guy in the world, he has his own set of rules and problems.
It's interesting
Well, how do you
that you
think
say
he
that
has
because
his own first world problem.
How do I think he got there?
You mean more money, more problems?
Well, I mean,
it's-
sure,
it's
like
not-
he's got his own problems and shit, but
it's not just that though. Like when you really think about it, right? There's things that we as people who don't have like a certain level of wealth don't even consider, and it's something that I used to think about. Like, you know, if I had $1 billion, right, I would probably like my family structure would change. Like I would probably be,
dollars.
I'd probably be the
You could
Yeah, yeah,
change
but-
the economy of a small
Yeah.
country.
yeah,
with
but I'm
$1
just
billion.
yeah, but
It
I'm
sounds
just
like
looking
the
at
beginning of a lottery. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the structure of my family. It would change because I would